I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide podcast, raw and unfiltered, bringing to you some interesting scenarios that you may actually relate to. You may find yourself a little uncomfortable with that too, or even triggered and pretty much upset with me. And that's the whole point, because unless we face our challenges head on, we may never get the breakthroughs that we desire. It's no different than going to the gym and working out. But if you don't work out hard enough and don't feel the pain and the stress on your body, you're not going to get any better. And that's the same thing with life. And a lot of people don't like that concept. But the other trigger that I'm going to give you right now, and maybe you'll just shut this podcast off, and that's okay because you're going to lose out. But we no longer have an excuse to be sick. And 5 years ago, I couldn't say this, but with all these amazing entrepreneurs and geniuses and pioneers in all fields of health and wellness and medicine, they've figured out a whole bunch of things about how our body works and what we can do to restore normal balance. But particularly these amazing people out there that can guide you. And that's the reason for this podcast, to introduce to you the process by which you can better navigate your health optimization with the incredible guests that I have out there, and not by just listening to some podcast that's selling products and their genius ideas, because not everything fits for everyone. And not every podcast is relatable to you either. My hope is that this series of podcasts is relatable to everyone, where it's more about the process that we're sharing versus selling you something for you. So how do we actually do that? Well, we do that through role play, because that way you can relate to the actual problem somebody is presenting and the guidance that somebody is offering to some form of resolution. Now, let's be honest, we're doing that only in 6 minutes, so not much can be resolved, but at least you'll have a sense as a direction as to where you need to go to resolve your own problem. Because in my opinion, most problems, and not all of them, are pretty much resolvable, if that's a word, or at least can be improved. So your quality of health definitely can have some improvement. But the question is, where do you go? Well, ultimately, it's your responsibility to figure that out, and finding the right people that can guide you with the right kinds of products and services. So for today, what we're going to do is that I'm going to have both my guests introduce themselves briefly. We're going to do about a 6-minute role play. One will present with a problem, the other will guide them to some form of resolution. And after that, we'll unpack that. And so my hope for you is that you'll get some insight and some action steps that you can take. And perhaps even more importantly, as we discussed in the previous show with both Wendy and Keith, is the hope and clarity that there is a path forward for you. And it's entirely up to you with the right people on your team. So Wendy and Keith, thank you so much for joining us today. Keith, I'd love for you to introduce yourself just briefly. We'll go with Wendy, and then we'll dive into the role play.
All right. Well, I'm Keith. I'm from Tennessee, former firefighter, law enforcement, and I work in the hormone health space now.
Excellent. Wendy?
I am Wendy Myers, and I am a trauma-informed fitness and nutrition coach. And that means that I get to remove those barriers that you have had in your fitness journey so that you can actually succeed.
Wonderful. Great. So thank you for that. I really respect the kind of work that you both do, and instrumental in changing people's lives with this amazing guidance that you have, as you also curate and educate. So Wendy, I know you've got a problem. I know you got lots of problems, but no, just kidding. You have a problem today that Keith is going to guide you.
I do. All right. So Keith, I am dealing with a 20-year-old daughter who we have clashed for a lot of our lives. I know now that I'm trauma informed that a lot of it had to do with my undealt trauma. And so I'm trying to step forward in a relationship with her, but I also know that she's 20 and I've never had a healthy mother-daughter relationship modeled to me. So I'm looking for possibly a mindset of myself to be able to move forward and appreciate and respect her boundaries. But yet at the same time, if she's pushing me away so much that she doesn't want to have anything to do with me, I don't know, push enough that I gain that relationship and let her know I'm still there for her.
Right. So I'm sure you'll answer some questions if I have any. Um, you know, first was recognizing if you had issues with your communication with her, which
Mhm.
you obviously you said, about the trauma that was undealt with before. Uh, and second, with her, understanding her. Uh,
Yeah.
People, it's kind of like a text message or an email. When you read something, you can send one message, you might read it, Bart might read it, I might read it, but all three of us might come up to a different conclusion. So when you're talking about your communication with your daughter, you have to understand who she is as a person. So you can talk to her in a way she understands.
Mhm.
Um, one of those things is, like you said, you didn't have a relationship, a mother-daughter relationship to base it upon. So you're really starting at scratch there. So finding that commonality for you and her to build upon is really a very big key. And of course, being very open about it, being honest about it. She's 20. We've all been there. Teenagers love to push away. Young adults love to push. They know it. They got this. But as the parent, of course, you want that healthy relationship. One of the things I always preach to my girlfriend with her son is he can have a safety net. Doesn't mean he always has to know it's there. Something happened to her, you're there. You have to be able to accept that sometimes stepping back when they push is the best thing because you want them to be able to come to you. And pushing might actually do more harm than good. So I would say, hey, find that relatable topic first. You're doing this from scratch. You know yourself, you're healing as well. So when you recognize things, make those fun suggestions. Keep things light, keep them healthy. So that way you're not overbearing, I guess you could say, on a one topic. Like, oh, I want you to be a doctor, or I want you to go to this school. Just hey, I noticed you're starting to do some stuff with some fitness and some coaching. Here's a good book you may want to read. Offer them something, whether they take it or not. You can always offer help to somebody. Doesn't mean they're going to take it,
Right.
but it's the reference of this person was there for me. I know I can come back to that person because it's all about how you treat a person. The whole notion of um, first impressions last the longest. Well, if you meet somebody and they're rude and obnoxious, and you're not going to go back to them. You go to a doctor that doesn't listen to you, probably won't go back to them. Your child pushing away is saying, "Hey, let me make a decision here. Let me see who I am." Because she's let's face it, none of us really know who we are until later in life, like until we've gone through the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of this world. And it's horrible. And as young adults, we all go through it. At 20, I was a firefighter. At 20, what were you doing at 20?
College.
You were in college. Did you know where you would be today?
No.
Oh, she's going through the same thing. So I think the most important things is you stay honest with her. You create a space for her to know that you're there, whether she recognizes it or not, because you yourself are her safety net. So even if she does fall, even if she slips, you can be there to still pick her up. And having that should be the most important thing for them because that lets them know, hey, I can grow as a person. I can make a decision, but I know if I ever get into a bad spot, I got the right people behind me to give me that helping hand when I'm ready to approach it.
Yeah. No, I like that.
So it's key, but it's hard because mother hen instincts always take over.
Right.
You know, guys are guilty of it too as father figures, and stepfathers. I don't want to leave those guys out. My girlfriend has a son. We've been together almost 8 years. It's really hard. He is not like me in any way, shape, or form. But I've learned about what he likes. I created a platform where he can come and talk to me, but I never push it. I let him be his own person. I let him come to me when he's ready. But he knows there's a problem, you come to me. We've created that healthy communication where it's honest. Hey, I'm going to tell you the truth, whether it hurts you or not. If you're into something, oh, hey, he's into computers. Let me pick up a few things for the computers. Here you go. Has he read them? I don't know. Is it wasted money? Maybe, but it's the fact of I offered help. I offered something to him that he enjoys, that opens that door of communication. So when he's ready, he can come to me.
Mhm.
Just, it's in any mental health area, that person has to recognize they need the help and seek it out. Doctor's not gonna, well, doctors don't make house calls anymore.
I do.
Well,
Um,
aside from this gentleman, he does. So,
well, that was
but
amazing, Keith. Oh, sorry, you had something else to say? You want to add something
no,
else?
I was just going to put it in there. The person has to seek out their solutions.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love it. Let's wrap it up there if you're okay with that, Wendy, unless you want to say
Yeah,
anything.
no, I'm good. That's good.
So I'm going to do something a little differently today. So I want to summarize what Keith said because he had a lot of information, and oftentimes when you hear it in a different way, same information, by the way, it kind of sinks in a lot better. And so the last comment that you say, and I'll try to reverse engineer all of this because you said there are a lot of gems there, Keith. And it's a phrase that I like to use often and one that confuses people, but everybody has to participate in their own rescue. And so that is key. You have to partake in your own rescue. And that starts with being honest, which we talked about last time, being aware of what's really going on and having the grace to accept the fact that, yeah, you've got this baggage, you got this issue, you got this internal conflict. It doesn't make you a bad person, it doesn't make you a horrible person by any means. And then the other part is what I really liked, accepting yourself and love you, no matter what. But you said it differently too. You said, in as a parent, just have them know that you're going to love the kid no matter what. And I learned this from Deepak Chopra because he's a very well accomplished gentleman, and he told his own kids, "Look, all I want you to do is to do what you really love to do, and the rest will follow. Finances or whatever, but you got to love what you do." And the same thing with our kids. We got to let them be who they are, and just help them come up with the right decisions versus telling them what to do. Because when we tell our kids what to do, it's actually more about us than them. And this is something I also recently got reminded of going to a Tony Robbins event. And we talked about relationships, and it was very evident how much suffering people were having when it was all about them. When it was, my issue, trying to tell the other person how to be, do this, do that, and they're all suffering because they're focused on them versus the other person. And so that's where also kind of what you said in a different term is you got to love and respect other people's model of the world. What is their understanding of the world? Don't make it yours, make it theirs, and navigate through their world and to potentially poke holes into their realities, their beliefs that doesn't serve them. And the final thing that I'm just going to say is, two things. A frame, this is something I learned recently, by the way, is how people are showing up in a certain situation. So your 20-year-old might be in a moment where she's, having a fight with a boyfriend, if she has one, or girlfriend, if she has one. And then she's showing up, arguing with you, when it's because she came from an argument right before that. But the final thing I want to say is that we all want to be witnessed. We all want to be acknowledged. And one of the things I would say first before you did anything is acknowledging your doctor. I hear what you say, and this is what I hear, that's going on with you. That makes a world of difference. So I think I summarized everything, maybe added a few things. What else do you want to add? Because there's so much wisdom in both of you. But let's have Wendy share.
Oh, well, as I've been going through this with her, it's interesting because she's the one that on the outside people would say we're the most alike because she's going into the fitness nutrition world. But she's so opposite me. And I think that's where we have clashed a lot. So I guess the gem there is value the opposite of who you are, because there really is, I'm starting to learn there's really no, we like to say there's right and wrong. We like to say there's a gray area. But I think those right and wrongs are really what we've been raised with. You know, you ask what's right and wrong in one area of the world, it's going to be completely opposite in another. So why do we think that we have to have a right and wrong within a family, or, you know, dynamics like that? And I think there's just, you kind of explained it in the sense where you're like, he said to let them be themselves. I guess I'm sort of leading to that, in that we like to say, you were raised this way, you're going to go out this way. But that's so far from the truth. I have 3 girls and they are completely opposite. And instead of getting frustrated, I've learned to value that and see the beauty in that. And I think so often as parents, we think that we've failed if we have children that are different. And I'm almost getting to the point where I'm like, I succeeded because I didn't throw dogma and rules so heavily onto them that they couldn't be who they were. My daughters are so different. I've got one that just moved to Germany, one that wants to go to Florida, one that's coming with me to Idaho. They're all in different, I mean, you couldn't get more different girls. And I tried so hard to raise them with freedom of who they were. And then I was getting frustrated in their older teenage years that they were actually embracing that, right? And so I've come back to, you know what? You did a great job letting them be them. And who am I to say who they are? I don't know. So yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, one great meme that I got from someone else. I mean, as a parent, really our only job is to keep them alive till they're 18 and then they're on their own. You can interpret that any way you want. Keith, what have you to say about any of this?
I know that meme well. I was reminded of it constantly growing up because I don't have the healthiest of relationships with my father. And Tammy's son, you know, is working on his. I always like to remind people, A, stop trying to make your kids you. They should be a better version of you, a more explored version of you, a wider view, more open-minded view of you. So, you know, with you and your daughter, you know, when you put the same magnetized magnets, you know, positive to positive, what happens? They repel. Your platform to talk to her is a repellent platform. Flip your magnet. She's opposite of you. You find everything that's opposite. There's your ground to walk on. And then so many people focus on perfection. Oh, that I want my kid to be perfect. He's the perfect little angel. He's the perfect little mama's boy, or she's the perfect little role model. Stop. Nobody's perfect. But teaching them the pursuit of perfection is totally different because that teaches them to always strive to be better, to always reach for something further, to improve upon, to grow, to educate upon everything that you just chase it. You know, back in feudal Japan during samurai eras, you know, they had their task. It didn't matter if it was the gardener, the sword maker, anybody. They pursued perfection in their art. And I think that's very important for people to understand. If they're passionate about it, pursue that. Pursue it until you can find that nirvana moment, I guess you could say. But don't expect perfection, but just strive for it because you're never going to achieve it. But if you're always striving for it, you'll always be on a path of consistently learning and learning and educating yourself on who people are, what they are as individuals is the best way to truly understand them.
Yeah, you're spot on. I would have to say, I mean, you know, we're never exonerated from doing the work to grow and to learn and to become that better version of ourselves. I mean, you're so right on that. And you know, people may, you know, misinterpret, you know, the term perfection. Although I'll say this is that I'm the youngest of 3 boys. And in my mother's eyes, I was absolutely perfect. I mean, I was the mama's boy. I did everything she said. I was the perfect, you know, host in all of her, you know, socialite parties and all that nonsense. I just did what my mom said. I wish she were alive for her to hear me say that. But
And
here,
see, that's great because I'm the oldest of 4. And my mother always calls me the practice child.
And that's true. I mean, you're the experiment, and
I was.
yeah, you broke the mold, and then at the end, I got the easiest journey of all of them. But you're
Mhm.
right. I mean, perfection, outstanding, excellence, whatever that is. I mean, you're spot on. There's always that opportunity to become more, but that's for all of us, and that's for everything. More time, more money, more magic in every part of our life. That's what this is about. And the only way we're going to do it, again, using your words, Keith, is being honest, and using your words, Wendy's, having grace. And that combination right there is giving your permission to be human, by the way, um, is that path that we need to go on. So I honor both of what you guys are saying.
Thank you.
Want to say anything else?
No,
That was
I'm
an
good.
opening.
I'm good.
Yeah, I have a very difficult relationship with my father. And there's a lot of parents out there that feel like they struggle with their children, step parents as well, or if you're dating somebody who has a child. Um, be patient with them, especially if you're a step parent or a mother or a father figure. Be patient. Um, Patience is a virtue I believe so many people lack nowadays. Because if you're the step parent, you really have to learn who that person is to communicate properly with them. And for parents, remember, your kids are going to experiment. They're going to grow just like you did. Be accepting of that. Be open minded to at least learn about them. Because let's face it, how we grew up 20 years ago is not the way the world is today. There's every single, what would be the best word for this? Sensation, whether it be mental or physical, it's at our fingertips now with technology. You know, we wouldn't be able to do this kind of podcast 20 years ago. We didn't have the technology. So kids have a plethora of avenues to explore where we did not. It was let's make mud pies, play tag, or throw the football in the yard. It was go outside, survive off garden hose water, and that was it. So be understanding that they have so much more shown to them, and that is very stimulating to their brains. It's going to warp it. So if you're pounding on them because of something you agree with, don't like, but don't understand it or haven't educated yourself on it, that could really strain the relationship. So at least be patient enough to learn where they're coming from, understand it from their point of view, so that way you can relate to them better of why it may be unhealthy for them.
And still love them with boundaries and no judgment, and respect them. I totally agree with you, 100%, Keith. Wendy, last word.
Yeah, I would say I love the boundaries that you said too, but love ourselves. I think if we're dealing with a society now where I would say the higher percentage of people do not love themselves, and we are incapable as human beings to love somebody else if we don't love ourselves. And that goes for mother-daughter, father-daughter, or father-child relationships as well. We think we have this unconditional love, but if we don't love who we are, we cannot look at this other human being and say, oh my gosh, I love you, I value you for who you are. And so that is where a lot of problems start, because we start to see our children as a means to an end to love ourselves. If they're worthy enough, then I'm worthy enough. And so we put these pressures on them that are really coming from ourselves. And so if we as parents could just start to love ourselves, not for a parent, not for a spouse, but literally for ourselves, I think a lot of relationships between parents and kids would be completely different.
Yep. No, I totally agree. Well, I want to thank you both. Keith, how do people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Facebook, KJ Breed, or Keith Breed, or you can email me, keithjbreed@gmail.com. Or if once you figure out Wendy's information, her and I are mutual friends and business partners. So you can also find me on her page. We support each other's content a lot. So you'll probably see me pop up on hers.
Thank you, Keith. Wendy, how do people get a hold of you?
Basically on any social media at Wendy Lynn Myers, MYERS, or Wendy Lynn. And just DM me Phoenix and I will get back to you. Yeah.
And I want to thank you both. My name is Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide, Raw and Unfiltered, bringing to you situations that are real, that are painful at times, that might be triggering for you as well. But through that process, you know, and with the right guidance, you can navigate through that, get your breakthrough, and find that freedom that you so desire, because we all desire that. We all deserve that as well. And so there's nothing wrong with you. You know, we are not our behaviors, and we are not the labels that people put out there. Those are just tactics, strategies, gaslighting, you know, defense mechanisms, what have you. But the truth of the matter is that there's amazing individuals like both Keith and Wendy out there that could support you, you know, poke holes in your reality and give you the true reality that's out there that's going to benefit you and give you the quality of life that you deserve. Once again, I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, Doctor's Guide, Raw and Unfiltered, and we will be back.